The wind howled across the endless white ice of Greenland. Dr. Elena Vasquez pulled her thick coat tighter around her body as she watched her team work. They had been here for 3 weeks, drilling deep holes into the ice to study how the Earth's climate was changing. It was cold, hard work, but Elena loved it. "Dr. Vasquez," called out Dr. James Chen from beside the large drilling machine. "You need to see this!" Elena walked over to where James was looking at a computer screen. The machine sent sound waves deep into the ice to see what was below. Usually, they only saw more ice and sometimes rock. But this time was different. "Look at this reading," James said, pointing at the screen. "There's something big down there. Really big. And it's made of metal." Elena stared at the screen. The shape was huge, maybe as long as 3 football fields. But that wasn't the strangest part. The shape had smooth edges and curves that looked like they were made by someone, not by nature. "How deep?" Elena asked. "About 200 meters down," said Dr. Yuki Tanaka, walking up to join them. She was the team's technology expert. "And Elena, look at this." Yuki showed them another screen. "The metal doesn't match anything we know. It's not iron, steel, or aluminum. It's something completely different." Elena felt her heart beating faster. In 20 years of studying ice, she had never seen anything like this. Could it be from a plane that crashed long ago? "No way," James said, shaking his head. "This thing has been down there for a very long time. The ice around it is ancient. I'm talking about thousands of years old, maybe more." Dr. Mike Petrov, their ice drilling expert, joined the group. "The strangest thing is how perfectly preserved it looks. Usually metal breaks down over time, especially in ice. But this thing looks like it was put there yesterday." Elena looked around at her small team. They were scientists from different countries who had come together to study climate change. Now they might have found something that would change everything. "We need to be very careful about this," Elena said. "If this is what I think it might be, we can't make any mistakes." "What do you think it is?" Yuki asked quietly. Elena took a deep breath of the cold air. "I think we might have found something that doesn't belong on Earth." The team worked through the night to get better pictures of the object. They used every tool they had to scan it from above. Each new image made the object look more impossible. The thing had a shape like a long triangle with rounded edges. Along its sides were patterns that looked too perfect to be natural. They looked like writing, but not like any language from Earth. "Dr. Vasquez," James said the next morning. His voice was excited but scared. "I've been comparing these patterns to every ancient language I know. Egyptian, Chinese, Sanskrit, everything. None of them match," Elena nodded. She had been thinking the same thing all night. "How long would it take to melt the ice and reach it?" Mike looked at his equipment. "With our heating tools, maybe 2 weeks if we work day and night. But Elena, if we do this, people will notice. We can't hide an operation that big." Elena knew he was right. Soon they would have to tell other people about what they found. Governments would want to take over. The media would go crazy. Scientists from around the world would come to study it. But first, she wanted to see it with her own eyes. "We start digging tomorrow," Elena decided. "But we keep this quiet until we know more. Just the 4 of us for now." The next 2 weeks were the hardest of Elena's life. They worked in shifts using hot water and heating tools to slowly melt through 200 meters of ice. The work was dangerous and exhausting. One small mistake could cause the walls of ice to fall and crush them. As they got deeper, they found more strange things. The ice around the object glowed with a very faint blue light. Their instruments started acting strange, showing readings that didn't make sense. "It's like the thing is giving off some kind of energy," Yuki said, checking her equipment for the 10th time that day. "But it's so weak I can barely measure it." Finally, on a cold Tuesday morning, Mike's drill broke through the last layer of ice. Elena was the first to climb down into the hole they had made. What she saw took her breath away. The object was enormous. Even standing right next to it, she couldn't see where it ended. The metal was dark gray and perfectly smooth. Strange symbols covered every surface, glowing with the same faint blue light they had seen in the ice. But the most amazing thing was how new it looked. There was no rust, no damage, no sign that it had been buried in ice for thousands of years. It looked like it had been built yesterday. "Elena, are you okay down there?" James called from above. "You all need to see this," Elena called back, her voice shaking with excitement. One by one, her team climbed down to stand beside the object. They all stood in silence for several minutes, just staring. "It's a spaceship," Yuki whispered. "It has to be," Elena nodded. She had been thinking the same thing. but hearing someone else say it made it real. They had found a spaceship buried in the ice of Greenland. A spaceship that was definitely not made by humans. What do we do now? Mike asked. Elena looked at her team. They were all good scientists and good people. She trusted them completely. But this discovery was bigger than all of them. First, we document everything, Elena said. We take pictures, measurements, samples if we can. We treat this like any other scientific discovery. And then? James asked. Then we change the world, Elena said simply. As they worked to set up their equipment around the alien ship, Elena thought about what this meant. Humans were not alone in the universe. Someone else had built this amazing machine, and somehow it had ended up buried in Earth's ice. Who were they? Where did they come from? And most importantly, were they still out there somewhere? The blue glow from the symbols seemed to pulse gently, as if the ship was sleeping but still alive. Elena had the strange feeling that the ship was waiting for something. Or someone. Elena, Yuki called out. I'm getting some very strange readings over here. It's like the ship is responding to us being near it. Elena walked over to where Yuki was holding her electronic scanner near one section of the hull. The symbols in that area were glowing brighter than the others. It's definitely reacting to something, Yuki said. Maybe our body heat? Or our movement. Elena reached out slowly and placed her hand on the cold metal surface. The moment her skin touched the ship, the symbols flared brighter. She could feel a slight vibration, like the ship was humming very quietly. Did you feel that? Elena asked, pulling her hand back. Before anyone could answer, something incredible happened. A section of the hull became transparent like glass. Through it, they could see inside the ship. There were corridors and rooms, all dark but clearly waiting. I think, Elena said quietly, it wants us to come inside. Elena stared at the transparent section of the alien ship's hull. Through the clear wall, she could see a small room with what looked like an airlock. The walls inside glowed with the same soft blue light as the symbols outside. This is incredible, James whispered, pressing his face close to the transparent section. It's like the ship knows we're here. Elena, we need to call this in, Mike said, his voice worried. This is too big for just the four of us. What if something goes wrong? Elena understood Mike's concern. If they entered the ship and something happened to them, no one would know what they had found. But she also knew that once they called their governments, everything would change. Teams of soldiers and politicians would take over. The discovery would become a weapon instead of a scientific wonder. Give me one day, Elena said. Let me contact Dr. Sarah Williams at the International Space Agency. She's someone I trust. She can help us figure out the right way to handle this. Elena climbed back to the surface and used their satellite phone to call Dr. Williams. Sarah had been Elena's friend since college, and she now worked as the head scientist for the International Space Agency. Elena, you sound strange, Sarah said after Elena explained where she was calling from. Is everything okay up there in the ice? Sarah, I need you to listen very carefully. What I'm about to tell you will sound impossible, but I need you to trust me. Elena took a deep breath. We found a spaceship. There was a long silence on the phone. Elena, have you been working too hard? Maybe the cold is affecting your thinking? Sarah, I'm sending you pictures right now. Look at them and then tell me what you think. Elena used her satellite internet to send the clearest photos they had taken. She waited while Sarah looked at them. Oh my God, Sarah whispered after a few minutes. Elena, these images, are you sure they're real? As real as anything I've ever seen. Sarah, I need your help. What do we do? First, don't let anyone else know about this yet. Second, document everything you can. Third, under no circumstances should you enter that ship until we have proper safety equipment and backup. Elena looked down at the hole where her team was still studying the ship. What if the opportunity goes away? What if it only opens for us now? Elena, promise me you won't do anything dangerous. I promise to be careful, Elena said, which wasn't exactly the same thing. When Elena climbed back down to the ship, she found her team making new discoveries. Elena, look at this, Yuki said excitedly. She was holding her tablet near different parts of the hull. The ship responds differently to each of us. When James gets close, the symbols turn yellow. When Mike approaches, they turn green. But when you or I get near, they turn bright blue. What do you think that means? Elena asked. I'm not sure, but I have a theory, Yuki said. What if the ship is reading our DNA? What if it responds differently to men and women, or to people from different parts of the world? James was examining the symbols more closely. These aren't just random patterns, he said. There's definitely a structure here like a language, but it's unlike anything humans have ever created. Elena walked closer to the transparent section. As she approached, the blue glow became brighter and the transparent area grew larger. She could now see deeper into the ship. There were corridors that seemed to go on for a long distance. It's definitely responding to you more than the rest of us, Mike observed. Maybe because you're the team leader? Or maybe because I touched it first, Elena said. Yuki was looking at her tablet with a confused expression. Elena, I'm getting some kind of signal. It's very weak, but it's definitely coming from the ship. What kind of signal? I don't know. It's not radio or any kind of communication signal I recognize. It's almost like the ship is trying to download something to my tablet. Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold Arctic air. Show me. Yuki held up her tablet. The screen was filled with symbols that looked exactly like the ones on the ship's hull. As they watched, the symbols began to move and change, forming new patterns. It's beautiful, James said softly. It's like the ship is trying to teach us its language. Or it's trying to tell us something important, Elena said. Suddenly, the transparent section of the hull began to change. It didn't just become clear. It disappeared completely, leaving an opening into the ship. Cool air flowed out, carrying a strange smell like ozone after lightning. The airlock is open, Mike said, stating the obvious. Elena stepped closer to the opening. Inside, she could see that the walls were covered with the glowing symbols. The air coming from the ship felt clean and fresh, not stale like she would expect from something that had been sealed for thousands of years. Elena, don't, Mike warned. We don't know if it's safe. The air smells clean, Elena said. And look, there are lights turning on inside. It's like the ship is welcoming us. She was right. As they watched, a gentle blue light began to illuminate the corridor beyond the airlock. The light seemed warm and inviting, not cold like artificial lights. We should wait for proper equipment, James said, but his voice didn't sound convinced. Elena could tell that he wanted to explore the ship as much as she did. What if this is our only chance? Elena asked. What if once we leave, the ship closes itself again and never opens? What if we miss the greatest discovery in human history because we were too scared to take a chance? Yuki checked the air coming from the ship with her instruments. The atmosphere seems normal. Oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, all at safe levels. It's actually cleaner than the air outside. Elena made her decision. She had spent her whole life studying the unknown. She had climbed mountains, dived into deep oceans, and traveled to the most dangerous places on Earth in the name of science. She wasn't going to stop now. I'm going in, Elena announced. Just a few steps just to see what's immediately inside. Elena, no, Mike said firmly. If something happens to you in there, how do we explain it? How do we even get you out? Then you come with me, Elena said. All of us. We stay together. We stay near the entrance, and at the first sign of anything dangerous, we leave immediately. Elena could see her team was torn between scientific curiosity and reasonable caution. She understood their fear. What they were about to do could be the most dangerous thing any of them had ever attempted. But it could also be the most important. 5 minutes, Elena said. We go in for 5 minutes, we look around the first room, and then we come back out to plan our next move. But we do this together, as a team. One by one, her team members nodded their agreement. Elena stepped through the opening into the alien ship. The moment her feet touched the floor inside, the symbols on the walls began to glow brighter. She could feel a slight vibration through the floor, as if the ship was waking up after a very long sleep. The ship is definitely responding to us being here, Yuki said as she followed Elena inside. My readings are going crazy. The airlock was small, just big enough for the 4 of them to stand together. On the far wall was another opening that led deeper into the ship. But this one was closed. Elena approached the closed door and examined the symbols around it. As she got closer, the symbols began to pulse in a rhythm that almost seemed like a heartbeat. I think it wants us to go further, Elena said. Or it's warning us to stay out, Mike countered. Elena placed her hand on the symbols next to the closed door. Just like before, they flared brighter at her touch. Then slowly the door began to open. Beyond the door was a sight that took Elena's breath away. The corridor stretched out before them, lined with walls covered in thousands of glowing symbols. The ceiling was high and curved, and the floor felt solid and smooth under their feet. We're inside an alien spaceship, James said in wonder. We're actually inside a ship built by beings from another world. Elena looked back at the open airlock behind them, then forward into the glowing corridor ahead. They had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Whatever they found inside this ship would change humanity forever. Let's see what they wanted to show us, Elena said, and led her team deeper into the ship. Elena led her team slowly down the corridor of the alien ship. Their footsteps echoed softly in the silence. The walls around them were covered with thousands of symbols that pulsed with gentle blue light. As they walked, Elena noticed that the symbols seemed to follow their movement, growing brighter as they passed. "It's like the ship is alive," Yuki whispered, running her hand along the wall. "The metal feels warm, not cold like it should be." The corridor was wider than Elena had expected. The ceiling was high enough that even Mike, who was the tallest member of their team, could walk comfortably. The floor was perfectly smooth and felt solid under their feet. "Look at the construction," James said, examining the walls closely. "There are no visible joints or welds. It's like the entire ship was grown rather than built." After walking for several minutes, they reached a large circular room. The ceiling here was much higher, and in the center of the room stood something that made them all stop and stare. It was a crystal formation about the size of a person, but it wasn't like any crystal Elena had ever seen. It was perfectly clear and seemed to contain swirling lights inside it. The crystal sat on a platform that was covered with the same glowing symbols as the walls. "What do you think it is?" Mike asked quietly. "Some kind of computer, maybe?" Yuki suggested. "Or a control system?" Elena approached the crystal carefully. As she got closer, the lights inside it began to move faster. The symbols on the platform below it started glowing brighter. "Elena, be careful," James warned. When Elena was about 3 feet away from the crystal, something amazing happened. The air above it began to shimmer, and suddenly a 3-dimensional image appeared floating in the space above the crystal. The image showed a being that was clearly not human, but was similar enough that Elena could understand it was intelligent. The being was tall and thin with long arms and a large head. Its skin looked smooth and gray, and its eyes were much larger than human eyes. "It's a hologram," Yuki said in amazement. "A 3-dimensional recording." The holographic being began to move. It raised one long arm and pointed at Elena, then at her team. It opened its mouth and began to make sounds, but they weren't like any language Elena had ever heard. "It's trying to communicate with us," James said. As they watched, the hologram changed. Now it showed the same being, but this time it was standing next to what was clearly a human. The human looked primitive, wearing animal skins and carrying simple tools. "That's a caveman," Mike said. "The image is showing us humans from thousands of years ago." The hologram continued to change, showing different scenes. Elena saw the alien beings studying early humans, watching them hunt, make fire, and create art. The aliens seemed peaceful, observing but not interfering. They were here on Earth long ago, Elena realized. They were studying our ancestors. The next series of images showed the aliens' homeworld. It was beautiful, with cities that seemed to grow like plants and ships that moved through space like birds through the sky. Elena could see that these beings were advanced far beyond anything humans had achieved. But then the images changed, becoming darker and more frightening. The hologram now showed different aliens. These ones looked like machines and flesh combined into something horrible. They were attacking the peaceful gray beings, destroying their beautiful cities, and turning their ships into twisted weapons. "Oh no," Yuki said softly. Something terrible happened to them. The images showed a great war across many worlds. The machine-like aliens, which Elena started thinking of as the destroyers, were consuming entire planets. They would attack a world, destroy all life on it, and then use the materials to build more of themselves. "They're showing us their history," James said. These peaceful aliens were destroyed by some kind of enemy. The hologram showed the gray aliens fleeing across the galaxy, trying to escape the destroyers. Elena watched as they hid their ships on countless worlds, including Earth. But it wasn't just hiding. They were doing something else. The images showed the aliens placing objects like the crystal in their hidden ships. Elena realized these were libraries or databases, storing all their knowledge for someone to find later. "They left their knowledge behind," Elena said. "They hid it, hoping that someday someone would find it and learn from it." The hologram focused on Earth again, showing the alien ship being buried in ice during what looked like an ice age. But before the ship was completely hidden, the aliens did something else. They left markers, symbols carved into rocks and caves around the world. Elena gasped as she recognized some of the symbols. They were similar to mysterious markings that had been found in ancient caves on every continent, markings that scientists had never been able to explain. They left us clues, Elena said. All those ancient symbols that we could never understand. They were leading us to ships like this one. The hologram changed again, showing the destroyers moving through space, still hunting, still consuming worlds. But the images were different now. They looked newer, more recent. Are they saying the destroyers are still out there? Mike asked nervously. The crystal began to pulse faster, and the hologram showed something that made Elena's blood run cold. It was Earth as it looked now from space. And approaching Earth were ships that looked exactly like the destroyer vessels from the earlier images. They're coming here, Elena whispered. The destroyers are coming to Earth. The hologram showed more details. The destroyer ships were still far away, but they were definitely heading toward Earth. The crystal displayed symbols that seemed to indicate time, and James, who was good with mathematics, tried to interpret them. If I'm reading this correctly, James said, his voice shaking, they'll be here in about 8 months. The crystal's light began to fade, but before the hologram disappeared completely, it showed one final image. It was the 4 of them standing in this room. But they looked different. They were wearing strange clothing that seemed to be made of the same material as the ship, and they were not alone. There were other humans with them, all wearing the same strange outfits. Is it showing us the future? Yuki asked. Or what could be the future, Elena said thoughtfully. When the hologram completely disappeared, the room fell silent except for the sound of their breathing. Elena looked around at her team. They all looked shocked and frightened. So let me understand this, Mike said slowly. We found a spaceship left by peaceful aliens who were destroyed by evil machine aliens. These evil aliens are now coming to Earth, and somehow we're supposed to do something about it. That's what it looks like, Elena said. But we're just scientists, Yuki said. What can we do against aliens with technology advanced enough to travel between stars? Elena approached the crystal again. This time when she got close, it began to glow with a different color, not blue, but a warm golden light. New symbols appeared on the platform, and Elena had the strange feeling that she could almost understand what they meant. Maybe we're not as helpless as we think, Elena said. These aliens, the good ones, they studied humans for a long time. They must have seen something in us that made them think we could survive where they couldn't. What could we possibly have that they didn't? James asked. Elena thought about all the human history she knew. Humans had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters. They had spread across the entire planet and learned to live in every environment from deserts to Arctic ice. We don't give up, Elena said simply. Even when things seem impossible, humans find a way to survive and fight back. Maybe that's what they saw in us. The crystal pulsed again, and Elena felt something strange happen. Knowledge seemed to flow directly into her mind. Not words or images, but understanding. She suddenly knew things about the ship, about the aliens, about the technology around them. Elena, are you okay? Yuki asked. You look different. Elena blinked and looked at her hands. They were glowing with the same faint light as the symbols on the walls. I think the ship just taught me how to use it, Elena said wonderingly. What do you mean? James asked. Elena walked over to a blank section of the wall and placed her hand on it. Immediately, symbols appeared under her palm, and a section of the wall became transparent, showing them another room filled with objects they couldn't identify. The ship isn't just a library, Elena said, her voice filled with excitement and fear. It's a gift. The aliens left us everything we need to fight the destroyers. We just have to learn how to use it. She looked at her team, seeing the same mixture of terror and determination in their eyes that she felt in her heart. We need to contact the outside world, Elena said. We need to tell them what's coming. And we need to prepare for the fight of our lives. The crystal pulsed once more, and Elena somehow knew that time was running out faster than they had thought. The destroyers had found Earth's location and were already on their way. Humanity's greatest test was about to begin. Elena's hands were still glowing with the strange light from the alien crystal, when alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The gentle blue glow of the symbols on the walls changed to a pulsing red, and the crystal in the center of the room blazed with bright white light. What's happening? Mike shouted over the noise. Elena pressed her glowing palm against the nearest wall, and knowledge flowed into her mind again. This time the information was urgent and terrifying. "The ship's long-range sensors have activated," Elena said, her voice tight with fear. "They've detected something approaching the solar system." "The destroyers?" James asked. Elena nodded grimly. 3 scout ships. They're still far away, but they're moving fast. Much faster than the main fleet we saw in the hologram. Yuki was checking her equipment, but her instruments were going crazy with readings she couldn't understand. "Elena, whatever that crystal did to you, it's affecting all the technology on the ship. Everything is coming online." Around them, the ship was waking up after thousands of years of sleep. Sections of the walls became transparent, showing them rooms full of equipment and technology. Lights turned on in corridors they hadn't explored yet. The floor itself began to vibrate with some kind of power. "The ship's computer is trying to contact me," Elena said, pressing both hands against the wall. More knowledge flooded her mind, and with it came something else, the presence of another intelligence. Suddenly, a new hologram appeared above the crystal. This one was different from the recordings they had seen before. This figure moved and looked directly at them as if it could see them. "Greetings, humans of Earth," the hologram said in perfect English. "I am Zefka, ship mind of the vessel you call Ship. I have been waiting for your species to find me." Elena stared at the talking hologram. "You're alive? You're the computer that runs this ship? I am what you might call an artificial intelligence, though we prefer the term ship mind. I contain the copied consciousness of Captain Zefka, who commanded this vessel during our final mission." "You can speak our language," James said in amazement. "I have been monitoring your world's communications for many years, learning your languages and studying your development. When your team activated the ship's systems, I was able to fully awaken." Elena felt a chill. "How long have you been watching us?" "Since your species first began using radio signals about 100 of your years ago. I have been very impressed by human progress. You have advanced remarkably quickly." "But not quickly enough," Elena said. "The destroyers are coming." Zefka's holographic face became serious. "Yes. My sensors detected their scout ships 3 of your hours ago. They will reach Earth in approximately 6 of your months. The main invasion fleet will arrive 2 months later." Mike sat down heavily on the floor. 8 months to prepare for an alien invasion. How is that even possible? "It is possible because you are not starting from nothing," Zefka said. "My people, the Kethmori, spent many years studying humans. We believed that if any young species could survive the destroyers, it would be yours." "Why?" Yuki asked. "What makes humans special?" The hologram smiled, which looked strange on the alien features. "You do not surrender. In all our observations, we never saw humans give up when faced with impossible challenges. You adapt, you learn, and you fight back with incredible determination. This is something the destroyers have never encountered before." Elena felt the truth of those words. Throughout human history, when faced with extinction, humans had always found a way to survive. Ice ages, volcanoes, plagues, wars. Humanity had endured them all. "What can you teach us?" Elena asked. "Everything," Zefka said simply. "This ship contains the complete technical knowledge of the Kethmori civilization. Faster than light travel, energy weapons, defensive shields, advanced materials, all of it can be adapted for human use." The hologram gestured, and the walls around them became transparent, showing room after room of alien technology. "But there is a problem," Zefka continued. "Kethmori technology requires biological integration to function properly. Our machines were designed to work with organic minds, not just electronic computers." "What does that mean?" James asked. "It means that humans must undergo genetic modification to use our technology effectively. The process is safe, but it will change you. You will become something new, still human but enhanced." Elena looked at her hands, which were still glowing softly. "Is that what's already happening to me?" "Yes. When you touched the main crystal, you began the first stage of integration. You now have a direct link to the ship's systems. But to use our weapons and fly our ships, more changes will be necessary." The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. "You're talking about changing the human race." "Not changing," Zefka corrected. "Enhancing. Making you stronger, faster, smarter. Giving you the tools you need to survive." "And if we refuse?" Mike asked. Zefka's expression became grave. "Then in 8 months, the destroyers will arrive and consume your world, just as they consumed ours. They will turn your planet into raw materials for building more of themselves. Every human will die, and Earth will become another dead rock floating in space. The room fell silent except for the humming of the ship's systems. Elena could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on all of them. They weren't just choosing for themselves, they were choosing for all of humanity. How many people would need to be enhanced? Elena asked. Initially, only a few thousand to operate our defensive systems and weapons. But if humanity is to survive long-term, eventually most of your species will need some level of enhancement. That's assuming people believe us, James pointed out. We're going to sound completely insane when we try to explain this. Zefka nodded. This is why I am allowing the ship's external sensors to become active. Your governments will detect energy signatures that cannot be explained by any Earth technology. They will be forced to investigate. As if summoned by his words, Elena's satellite phone began ringing. She answered it to find Dr. Sarah Williams shouting on the other end. Elena, what the hell is happening up there? Every satellite we have is detecting massive energy readings from your location. The readings are so strong they're interfering with communications across half the planet. Elena looked at Zefka, who nodded encouragingly. Sarah, I need you to contact every government and space agency on Earth. Tell them to send their best scientists and military leaders to our location immediately. Elena, you're scaring me. What's going on? Humanity is about to face its greatest challenge, and we have 8 months to prepare for it. Sarah, the energy readings your satellites are detecting. That's an alien spaceship. We found it buried in the ice, and it's been waiting for us. There was a long silence on the phone. Then Sarah spoke again, her voice carefully controlled. Elena, I'm going to need you to repeat that very slowly. Elena spent the next hour explaining everything to Sarah, while Zefka projected images and data to the ship's external sensors. The information was picked up by every space monitoring station on Earth, causing panic and excitement in equal measure. By the time Elena finished the call, Zefka was reporting that military aircraft from several countries were already heading toward their location. The real work begins now, Zefka said. Convincing your leaders to work together will be almost as difficult as fighting the destroyers. Elena looked around at her team. They all looked exhausted and overwhelmed, but she also saw determination in their eyes. Then we better get started, Elena said. How long does the enhancement process take? For basic integration, about 48 hours. For full combat capability, 2 weeks. But Elena, you should know. Once the process is complete, there is no going back. You will be permanently changed. Elena thought about her life before this moment. She had been a scientist studying ice samples. Now she was standing in an alien spaceship, preparing to help defend Earth from an invasion. I've already changed, Elena said. We all have. The moment we found this ship, we stopped being just scientists and became something else. What? Yuki asked. Elena looked at the alien technology surrounding them, felt the knowledge flowing through her enhanced mind, and thought about the destroyers racing toward Earth. We became humanity's last hope. Zefka's hologram flickered with what might have been approval. Then let us begin your transformation. The destroyers believe they are coming to consume another helpless world. Instead, they are about to discover what happens when humans decide to fight back. Elena placed both hands on the central crystal, feeling the alien technology merge with her DNA. Around her, her team stepped forward to join her. The real war was about to begin. 3 months had passed since Elena and her team first entered the alien ship. The world had changed in ways no one could have imagined. Elena stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Arctic Defense Station, looking out over a landscape that had been transformed into humanity's most important military base. Where once there had been only ice and her small research camp, now there were buildings, landing strips, and thousands of people from every nation on Earth. The alien ship, no longer buried in ice, sat in the center of the complex like a sleeping giant. But it was no longer alone. Around it, human engineers worked alongside alien technology to build things that had never existed before. Status report, Elena said to the enhanced human standing beside her. Colonel Maria Santos had been one of the first military volunteers to undergo the genetic enhancement process. Like Elena, her eyes now glowed with a faint blue light, and she could interface directly with Keth Mori technology. Integration is proceeding faster than expected, Maria reported. We now have over 3,000 enhanced humans capable of operating the defensive systems. The orbital weapons platforms will be online within 2 weeks. Elena nodded, but she felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. In the 3 months since they had revealed the truth about the destroyers, humanity had accomplished what should have been impossible. But would it be enough? The first weeks after her phone call to Sarah had been chaos. Governments around the world had initially tried to suppress the news, but when the alien ship's energy readings could be detected by any country with satellites, secrecy became impossible. Elena remembered the day when the first world leaders arrived at the Arctic site. The President of the United States, the Chinese Premier, the Russian President, leaders from the European Union, and representatives from dozens of other nations had all stood in the central chamber of the alien ship, listening to Zefka explain what was coming. Some had refused to believe it at first. Others had wanted to use the alien technology as weapons against other human nations. But when Zefka had shown them images of destroyed worlds consumed by the destroyers, when he had demonstrated the power of just one Kethmori weapon system, skepticism had turned to fear, and fear had turned to desperate cooperation. "Ma'am," said Dr. James Chen, approaching Elena on the observation deck. Like her, James had been one of the first to undergo full genetic enhancement. His ability to understand alien languages had made him invaluable in translating Kethmori technical documents. "We're getting reports from the lunar construction facility. The first squadron of human-piloted fighters will be ready for testing next week." Elena allowed herself a small smile. The lunar base had been one of humanity's greatest achievements in the past 3 months. Using Kethmori technology, they had been able to build a massive shipyard on the moon in just 2 months. Human workers, enhanced with alien genetic modifications, could now survive and work in space without bulky suits. "Any word from the outer system patrols?" Elena asked. "The enhanced scouts report that the destroyer advance ships are still maintaining their course toward Earth. Estimated arrival in 5 months. 5 months. Elena felt her enhanced mind automatically calculating battle preparations, resource allocation, and 1,000 other details. The genetic modifications had not just given her the ability to use alien technology. They had made her smarter, faster, and more capable of processing complex information. But they had also made her more aware of just how desperate their situation was. "Elena," came a familiar voice behind her. She turned to see Dr. Yuki Tanaka approaching. Yuki had chosen to undergo only partial enhancement, keeping her role as the liaison between enhanced and normal humans. "The UN Security Council is asking for another progress report." Elena sighed. Politics had not disappeared just because humanity faced extinction. If anything, the stress had made some political tensions worse. There were still nations that wanted to control the alien technology for themselves, still leaders who thought they could use the crisis to gain power over their enemies. "Tell them what I tell them every week," Elena said. "We're preparing for war, not politics. If they want to argue about who controls what, they can do it after we save the planet." As if summoned by her words, Zefka's holographic form materialized beside them. Over the past months, the alien AI had become not just their teacher but their strategic advisor. "Elena, I have concerning news," Zefka said. "My long-range sensors have detected a change in the destroyer approach pattern. They are accelerating. They will arrive in 4 months, not 5. Elena felt her enhanced heart rate spike, but her modified nervous system quickly brought it under control. How much of a difference will that month make? The difference between having our orbital defenses fully operational and having them at 60% capacity. Elena closed her eyes and accessed the tactical data flowing through her enhanced mind. With 60% capacity, they might be able to stop the 3 scout ships, but the main destroyer fleet would arrive only 2 months later, and if the scouts damage their defenses, we need to accelerate the enhancement program, Elena decided. "How many more volunteers do we have ready?" "Over 50,000 people from around the world have volunteered for full enhancement," Zefka reported. "But the process still takes 2 weeks per person, and we can only safely enhance about 100 people at a time." Elena did the math in her head. Even working at maximum capacity, they could only fully enhance about 6,000 more people before the scouts arrived. It wouldn't be enough. "Then we need to try something different," Elena said. "Zefka, what about partial enhancement for large numbers of people? Just enough to let them operate basic defense systems?" "Possible, but risky. Partial enhancement can be completed in 3 days, but the subjects would not have full protection against destroyer weapons. How many people could we partially enhance before the scouts arrive? Approximately 40,000 if we use every enhancement facility on the planet. Elena looked out at the Arctic base, thinking about the millions of people around the world who were counting on them. Families, children, elderly people who had no idea that their world was about to be attacked by beings from another star. Do it, Elena decided. Send the order to all facilities. Begin mass partial enhancement immediately. Over the next month, the world watched in amazement and terror as humanity transformed itself. In secret facilities on every continent, volunteers underwent genetic modifications that gave them glowing eyes, enhanced reflexes, and the ability to mentally interface with alien technology. The changes weren't limited to individuals. Entire cities were retrofitted with Kethmori defensive systems. Weapons that could destroy vehicles from orbit were hidden in buildings that looked normal from the outside. Underground shelters were built that could protect millions of people from orbital bombardment. But perhaps the most important change was in humanity itself. Elena watched as old prejudices and conflicts were set aside in the face of extinction. Nations that had been enemies for centuries worked together to build weapons. Scientists who had never shared research freely gave away their most closely guarded secrets. Ordinary people volunteered to undergo dangerous genetic modifications to protect strangers they would never meet. It's remarkable, Zevka said to Elena one evening as they watched the latest reports from around the world. In all our observations of young species, we never saw anything like this level of cooperation in the face of crisis. Humans don't always get along, Elena admitted. But when we're threatened, we can come together in ways that surprise even ourselves. The destroyers have never faced anything like this, Zevka said. Every species they encountered before either surrendered immediately or fought alone and failed. But humanity is fighting as one united world. 3 weeks before the destroyer scouts were scheduled to arrive, Elena received the news she had been hoping for. The orbital defense platforms were fully operational. The lunar shipyards had completed their first squadron of human-enhanced fighters, and most importantly, they had succeeded in enhancing over 40,000 humans with basic combat capabilities. Elena stood once again on the observation deck of the Arctic station, but this time she was not alone. Beside her stood Colonel Santos, Dr. Chen, Dr. Tanaka, Dr. Petrov, and dozens of other enhanced humans who had become humanity's first line of defense. In the sky above them, invisible to normal human eyes but clear to their enhanced vision, the orbital defense platforms hung like deadly stars. On the moon, which they could see even in daylight, the shipyards were launching the last of their fighter squadrons. And around the world, 40,000 enhanced humans sat at the controls of weapons that could reach into space and destroy ships traveling faster than light. Contact, announced Dr. Chen, his enhanced mind connected to the global sensor network. 3 objects have just entered the outer solar system. They match the destroyer scout ship profiles exactly. Elena felt a strange calm settle over her enhanced mind. For months they had prepared for this moment. Now it was time to see if humanity could survive its greatest test. Send the message to all defense stations, Elena ordered. Target the lead scout ship with everything we have. Show the destroyers what happens when they threaten Earth. Around the world, weapons that had never been fired before powered up. On the moon, enhanced human pilots climbed into fighters that could travel between worlds. In orbit above Earth, defensive platforms that could shield continents from attack came online. The destroyer scouts expected to find a helpless world full of primitive beings who could be easily conquered. Instead, they found humanity. As the first destroyer ship entered weapons range, Elena smiled with her enhanced features and spoke the words that would be remembered for as long as humans traveled among the stars. Welcome to Earth, we've been waiting for you. The war for humanity's survival had begun, and for the first time in galactic history, the destroyers were about to learn what fear felt like.